So hi, this is Nowhere to Go But a podcast, and I'm your host, Sean Dustin. Today we are talking to Stacey Sorgen?
Sorgen.
Sorgen? Sorgen. All right. Sorgen. And she is the creator of ModBody Fitness, correct?
ModBody Fitness. Yep.
All right. Well, why don't you go ahead and explain to everybody a little bit about yourself, how you came to want to be on this podcast, and then go ahead and jump into your story.
Sure. Well, my name is Stacey. I own ModBody Fitness, which is a studio built for everyone. You know, it's for people who didn't think that they were athletes, for people who have goals but have no idea how they're going to accomplish them, for people who want non-judgmental support and community. And I wanted to be on this podcast because, you know, I have my own story that I wanted to share about kind of hitting rock bottom and then coming back up. And I heard about this podcast through a good friend named Adrienne, who was on your podcast a couple of episodes back. And she's just such a great person. And when she gave me the info for you and I looked you up, I was just like, this guy's awesome. I really want to come on and talk to you, get to know you better, and see how we can connect and hopefully inspire some of the amazing people that listen to your podcast.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the compliment. I'm glad that, you know, what I'm doing is, you know, reaching some people out there. That's definitely a positive for me. So explain we talked, actually we had a lengthy conversation yesterday in our pre-interview. Hopefully we didn't use up all the
No,
good,
I think
good
we've got
juju.
plenty more. We've got plenty more, sort of. I'm sure we've got lots of stories and things to talk about.
But the one thing that I really identified with or related to what you were talking about was one of my own personal experiences with a gym. And it kind of goes into what you're doing and the whole reason why you're doing what you're doing. So why don't you explain the concept behind that?
Totally. Are you talking about the big box gym experience that I talked about last night? Okay. So many years ago, I was going through a breakup and I went to this big box gym that will remain nameless. I'm not going to name names. But I was walked through the gym and given like the tour, and they brought me to all the different departments and showed me like, this is the pool and this is the strength training area and this is the cardio area and here's the locker rooms. And oh, by the way, we're going to put you through a fitness test. And I'm doing this fitness test thinking to my 24-year-old self, like, this is normal, right? This is what you do at gyms. And they're making me feel awful, and they're making me feel like out of breath and judging me and writing things down on clipboards. And then they did this caliper test, which made me feel awful. And I just felt like I was, like they were making decisions about me and they were evaluating things that I did arbitrary. You know, I'm like, I'm just here to like hit stuff and like lift things and sweat and cry and like get out all this stuff I'm going through, you know? And so then they walk me over to the area where you meet with like a fitness counselor or whoever he was, the sales dude. And he's like, oh, we didn't get your weight. Let's bring you over to the scale. And the scale is in the middle of the gym, like in front of everyone. So I go to the scale and I'm still thinking to myself, like, I guess this is what a gym is. I guess this is what it's like. I guess that, you know, you have to humiliate yourself in front of a ton of people and face judgment and speculation and feel shame and all this weird stuff. And then it got worse. This counselor guy looks at the number on the scale, looks at my fitness scores, or whatever those are, and he goes, well, obviously you're here for weight loss. And that was the clincher for me. I was like, how do you know what my goals are? Like, you don't know me as a person. All you have done is shown me all the departments of the gym, evaluate what you think is my fitness, assume what my goals are, and then tell me what I need. You know, never once did you ask me, like, what do you want? What are your goals? How would you like to feel? And, you know, honestly, I bought that damn package. I bought the package because I felt shamed into it. You know, I felt I felt so bad. And I was like, I'm going to prove this guy wrong. And, I fed into that machine. I'm not going to lie. But that experience has informed so much how I've built my business as a personal trainer, as a holistic health coach, and as a yoga teacher. To never assume what people's goals are, to never assume anything about anyone, and to welcome everyone with open arms. Because we have no idea as people what people have been through. And I think that this podcast is such an amazing testament to that. So many people coming on and talking about where they are now in their life and what they've experienced. And we would never know, right, to look at each other, what we've been through. But we can't assume anything about, each other's past. We can't assume anything about eating disorders. We can't assume anything about fitness. We can't assume, and we can't make those assumptions. And I feel like that is one of the biggest reasons why people won't enter a gym, is that they're afraid of assumptions. They're afraid that we are categorizing them, that we are summing them up, that we are putting our own judgment onto them. And you said last night when we were talking that you experienced this too. So I'd love for you to share that story.
Yeah, so I'm a gym's best friend. I pay the membership and don't go, which doesn't wouldn't put any wear and tear on their equipment and their facility. Yeah, I was my ex-wife at the time. I was breakup. There's
right, breakup.
Yeah, whenever you go through a breakup, got to get back into playing shape, and so you can market yourself as a piece of meat out there amongst the. So anyway,
you're awful.
Yeah. So anyways, I did the same thing. I was like, all gung-ho. All right, well, now I'm, back on the saddle, and I'm going to get out there and I'm going to get in shape, and I'm going to be this hot guy and, be able to get any chick that I want. So I walked into a gym, and I won't name the one either, but it was intimidating. It was, and I'm not an obese person, and I didn't really feel like I was that overweight. I never really get to a point where it's like, oh my God, I don't want to take my shirt off. Yeah, it may be a little uncomfortable to take my shirt off, but it's not like I'm embarrassed. But with that being said, there was like buff dudes all over the place, and the women were very attractive, and they all had great bodies. And, I didn't see a whole lot of people that looked like me in there when I was going through. So that in itself was kind of intimidating. And I'm not one that really intimidates that easy. You know what I mean? I'll go to anywhere by myself. I'd go to a bar by myself. I go to a club by myself. I just never really been somebody who's was debilitated by assumption of what other people were thinking, that probably could care less about how what I felt about how I looked, and even would say anything or even look my direction while I'm busy trying to, better myself. So it was, it was definitely the same thing. And I paid for the membership 2 years up front, and that was the last time I walked into that place. So they got like $500 from me for nothing.
It's so hard, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to battle those assumptions. Even if nobody in that gym had an opinion or judgment, it's what we're afraid, it's what we're conditioned to think other people will think of us based on how we look and how society shames certain people for being certain ways. It's and sometimes it's real. Like you told me a little bit yesterday that you worked at a big box gym, right?
Yeah, I worked at the same big box gym that you were talking about, and we won't name them. And I was a fitness trainer at that place, and when I was 19, and I had to the similar experience is that we were salespeople. We weren't really, we didn't have any knowledge other than what we came there with as far as like weightlifting and training somebody. Basically all you're doing is they get funneled to you once they get the membership, and then it's up to you to fleece them of some more money and convince them that they need more training after they, their initial 2 training sessions that came with their membership. And so, I mean, we were not trained to be delicate or sensitive or even like the example that I'll give you is that there was this overweight lady, and it came time to do the caliper test, and like she really wasn't dressed to be there because she wasn't like a fitness person, you know what I mean? And so she had to take off her shirt, and she was in her bra, and you could tell that she was visibly like embarrassed and like felt ashamed in her own skin at that point. And like, I didn't think about that at the time, but I mean, thinking back on it now, like we're not trained to be in a situation like that. You know what I mean? We don't know how to be delicate, of people's issues, or, I mean, not even that it's an issue. I mean, who's it an issue for? If it's not an issue for you, then why should it be an issue for somebody else?
Totally.
Yeah.
I think that's how we think about so many things. And then as we get older and we realize that other people have different experiences, we come to believe in those things too. Those things become important to us because we know people who are affected by them, or we've experienced it. And I think last night you were talking a little bit about, like not realizing that something was an issue until you could put yourself in that person's shoes, and being someone who went to a gym and had that experience and felt that shame, that's part of why I started the business that I have. But then it like blossomed into so many other things, like things I didn't even think about because they were not in my purview, like why people wouldn't want to go to a big box gym. And I'm constantly learning about different reasons that people need the service that I have, even if it wasn't intentionally like set up that way in the first place. But it's amazing once you start learning about people and meeting people and talking to them about what their experiences are, what you learn about the world, how things kind of shift your perspective.
Yeah, and then you also, I mean, you changed careers, right? And just kind of like dove into this space, not even having any training in it whatsoever, other than a desire to want to make a change in the approach of fitness.
Yeah. So I mean, like I had that experience in that big box gym, and years later, I was working at a cancer center here in Seattle, and had an experience where I was just working with a lot of people, amazing people who were many at end of life. And I couldn't understand why so many people had no idea what was happening with their body. Like their mind and bodies were so disconnected that people were coming in with like secondary issues to their cancer that they never knew about. Like I was talking about type 2 diabetes, heart conditions, all sorts of things. And, we're talking to them and they'd say like, the last time I went to the doctor is 10 years ago or 5 years ago, or, I've had this problem, but I ignored it. And I thought to myself, like, I don't think I can work in end of life care anymore. I don't think I can work this far along. I really want to help people be take charge of their health and respect their bodies and accept themselves and work on the things that they've always been afraid to do. And it occurred to me how many of these people are people who have been afraid to like step into the gym for judgment, or have been afraid and then live their whole life. My sorry about that. My Apple Watch.
Sorry.
Have been afraid their whole life, to do the things that they wanted to do, and they put them off, and then they were struck by something like, unfortunately, cancer, and weren't able to do it. And I think we should have the best fighting chance. God forbid something like that come along. We want to be able to get the chemo that we need to get, and we need to be able to have strong bodies to go through the treatment that we need. my sister just finished treatment for breast cancer, and I'm so glad that she was so strong being before she was diagnosed. You know, she has like a strong body and a strong mind. She believes in herself. She's confident in her abilities. And then that came up, and she's so young and has 2 small children, and she was able to make it through her treatment. So that to me was just, drove that point home, that when we focus on our bodies, when we are in touch, mind and body together, we can do really great things in our lives. And, it just makes a big difference. So I wanted to get out of the cancer treatments, although I still see a lot of cancer patients coming into the gym, and it's amazing to work with all of them. I don't deal with like the oncology portion of it in a hospital anymore, which I'm thankful for. But it's been amazing to have them come in and seek help and learn how to move again and all of that. And so I'm working at this cancer center where I'm like crying every morning before I go in, and crying in my car down in the garage on my lunch break, and crying after work. And it was just too much, like too much loss, too much on my shoulders. I just wasn't cut out for it, I don't think. And I just saw a lot of stuff going wrong, to tell you the truth. So I wanted to get out. And I remember telling one of my coworkers at the time, I said, I think I want to be a personal trainer. And this is like, like when you're watching a movie and they say something and you're like, that's foreshadowing. Now looking on this moment with my coworker, I'm like, that's foreshadowing. She looked at me, she looked me down, and then back up. She laughed at me and then turned around and then started typing on her computer again. It was like I hadn't even gone into the world of personal training. I hadn't even started trying to help people with their fitness, and I was already being judged and just kind of like brushed off. So I started going to see a personal trainer myself. And then I studied and studied and studied. And then I got an internship at a fantastic gym in Seattle. And I worked with them for a year and a half. Then I started in a big box gym, and I hated it. And I was like, this is everything awful that I thought it would ever be. And then I started to figure out like what's really important to me. How am I going to be able to accomplish my goal of bringing what I want people to be able to access? How do I bring that to the world? And what does that look like? And how do I do it as a person of my size? And how do you break through all of those stigmas and stuff? Like how do you let somebody know that you can help them with their fitness goals, even if your body is not the one that they want to attain through your training? It's possible. You can do it. I've done it with hundreds of people. If you train with me, you're not going to look like me. Pretty much the same thing for, just not calling out any size 2 women out there. But if you go to a size 2 trainer down the street, you're probably not going to end up looking like the size 2 trainer when you're done. We are all people. We have to do the best that we can for our bodies. Do the best that you can with what you have when you have it, But it was a big change for me, going from oncology and working as a team coordinator, working with all these patients, and then kind of just getting this judgment and then being like out in the world like, hey, I'm ready to do this. Who's ready to come work with me? It was super hard.
Yeah, I remember in the conversation you said that it took you some time to actually put your own image on any of your posts or literature or anything that you were putting out there, right?
Yeah. And I think I was afraid of what I just said. I was afraid that people would take a look at my picture and think that I wasn't fit, because society tells us so many things. Like the commercials that play around the first of the year are ridiculous. And the things that pop up on the internet and the way people try to sell their bodies in order to try to get you to come into the gym. I just really wanted to be gentle, let people come in, meet them, let them get to know me instead of just putting my picture out there, because I was afraid that people would self-defer from coming in to work out or to learn more. And I was really surprised that it was quite the opposite, that people found me when I put my picture up to be like more normal, quote unquote, or to be more like them, or like, quote unquote, like less intimidating are some of the things that I've heard. And that whole time I was really terrified that they would look at my picture or my images and be like, oh my God, why would I ever work with you? You're not what I want to look like on the other side of whatever journey they're going through, whatever their goals might be. And, just as I was afraid they were judging me, I was totally judging them, like that they would assume that. And so I think that the fitness industry, we're breaking down these assumptions all the time.
Well, I mean, things are changing too. I mean, everybody's perception of stuff. Like I used to, I mean, I was pretty harsh, you know what I mean, and judgmental at a point in my life. And, if you didn't look a certain way or, because you're right. We're conditioned to see something as, oh, that's the face of that, or this is the face of that, or, this is what represents this. And if you've been anywhere in the fitness industry or the world or in that space, you're going to know that genetics play a big part in what people look like and what they're going to look like. Not every guy can get a six pack, even if he tries his hardest. He may attain it at some point, but I mean, if you know anything about fitness and yourself, it's the losing the weight is the easy part. Keeping it off and turning it into a lifestyle is the hardest part. We can get across the finish line, but can we keep training for the next one? That has always been the hardest part for me, because I mean, let's face it, food is good. Food tastes good. Sugar's amazing. It's awesome. I mean, I just had a half a pint of Ben & Jerry's the other night, and I had a little bit more last night, and I'll probably finish the rest tonight.
Wait a second. What flavor? I might judge you based on what you say. I don't know yet.
I think it's the caramel something cheesecake one. I was gonna get fish food.
That sounds delicious.
I was gonna get fish food, but I'm like, I'm a caramel person. I like anything that's got caramel in it.
Fish food was totally my favorite in college. That was definitely a favorite. That's a good one.
But I mean, I struggle. The point is I struggle every day in the choices that I make and the things that I put in my mouth. And at some point I go back around. And my ex, I was at her house the other night, and she's like, she's the same thing. She struggles with her weight as well, but she comes over and she like hits my stomach and goes, and so, but it'll get to a point where I'll be like, all right, it's time to go running, time to start exercising again, time to start eating right. And then I'll pull it back into about 230, 235. And then I'll, for me, the challenge is staying at 235, not losing it, going back up, coming back down, going back up, coming back down. I haven't figured out how to do that yet, to be consistent with it. But I like my food, man.
Well, I think a lot of people struggle with what you're talking about, and there's like two different things going on that I see a lot. And one is like the extremes, right? Like I'm cutting out all of whatever in my nutrition, or I'm going to work out so extreme. And so you see results, and usually they're rapid, right? But we can't sustain that level because it strips away a part of our quality of life and what we find enjoyable. All of a sudden, you feel like you can't socialize with friends that you could. You can't keep traditions with family like you could, and you start to feel like it's kind of tearing away like the fabric of who you are, and then you quit. And it was so severe a change that it's very difficult. And so it's like for a lot of people it's cyclical, like they do this thing, they do it like so much, they get results, and then it's so crazy a thing that they tried that all of a sudden they're like, I can't do this anymore, and then it comes back. The other thing is the idea of like all or nothing. So there's like the extremes, and then the people who are like the all or nothing people, who are like, I'm going to do all of the things all the time. And they hold themselves to such a high standard. And if they can't meet that standard, they're like, oh, I might as well do nothing. And I like to live in the in between. And I think that that is where so many people can find really fantastic success for themselves, of like balance, you know, so balance with what you eat, and balance with how you move, and balance with how you socialize and how you spend time alone, and balance with sleep time versus wake time. And, you know, and it's going to change from day to day. And we create flexibility and space for all of those things, so that you're never like off plan, or you're never like effing it up, you know, like it's just what happened that day and you roll with it. And the next day you do something different if you want to. So I think a lot of people like challenge themselves to go to like these crazy extremes, especially around the first of the year, like some of those New Year's resolutions and crazy diets and stuff that come out that tell themselves as a silver, you know, magic bullet for stuff. It's just, they don't work, or they work for a very short time. And then the other stuff is people who hold themselves to like, I have to eat just this many calories, and I have to work out for this many minutes, and I have to get this much sleep. And like they hold themselves to such extremes that they can never like attain it. And then it's just gone. They're like, oh, I might as well I'll just Netflix.
Yeah. The diet thing I did, I mean, the keto worked for me, but I haven't been able to get back into ketosis since I've or got fat adapted after the first time I did it. And then there's another thing, you know, which diet, because you hear so much about, okay, so you got veganism over here, and then you've got the vegans talking shit about the carnivore people, you know, oh, that's not supposed to be, you're not supposed to be able to just eat meat. And, you know, and they're finding that they're having a lot of success with curing autoimmune things with the carnivore diet. And then you've got another, you know, the keto people over here, and it's like, which one is what, man? I mean, which one is who? It's so confusing. And then so you're just like, well, screw it. And you know, like kind of what I go by is like how my clothes feel on me. And I don't use a scale. I try to eat the best that I can. It's been really difficult being in this quarantine situation where I haven't been able to leave, and I know how to cook, and I'm a good cook. And so it's like, I'm okay, well, you know, I'm going to eat.
Well, I think right now, you know, I'm seeing all these memes on social media and like a lot of judgment. And it's almost like people are like, if I make a joke about this, then nobody will judge me for it. Or if I don't know, but I've seen a lot of that stuff about like, do your pants still fit? Or, you know, like we're going through like a global emergency. If you want to eat some ice cream right now, this personal trainer is telling you, eat the effing ice cream. Like, do what you got to do in order to get through right now. Maybe you're sleeping more. Maybe you're not sleeping enough. Like, maybe you're, you know, whatever, a little bit more than usual. Like, do what you got to do, and then come back to center, that middle space again. Try to get out of the extremes when you can, but try to find the center again. And, you know, as far as like the diets and stuff go, I always say this to people who are like, which is the right one? Can you tell me what to do? When you used to be able to go walk in a bookstore, right? Like a Barnes & Noble or Borders or something like that. You know, that aisle that would just have like all the books on weight loss and diets and stuff. Those are all really well-intentioned and people who just want to make money. But a lot of people who figured out what worked for their own body and did a lot of research, to put a lot of effort, blood, sweat, and tears into figuring out what worked for themselves. And then either wanted to share it because they were like, this is amazing, I want to share it with other people. Or they're like, I can make money off of this and like sell it into this, you know, fitness and wellness community. But here's the thing is that person put the energy and the time into figuring out what worked for them. It might work for you for a bit of time, but odds are that you're going to find it's too extreme or doesn't 100% fit with what your needs are, or maybe that it just doesn't work for you at all. And then you're going to stop doing that thing, which is going to make you feel like you failed, right? So what we can do is like write the book on ourselves. You can do an experiment where you eat different foods for 2 weeks, see how you feel. If your goal is weight loss, like how's it going with that? If your goal is more energy, how's that going? If your goal is weight gain, how is that working for you? And just do an experiment for yourself to see what works best for you. So if you're experimenting with like a vegan diet, cool. That's awesome. I have absolutely no judgment about what people put into their bodies. None at all. But I think that it's important to find the things that allow you to have the amount of energy that you want to have, to be able to live your life well, so that you feel satiated, and so that like you enjoy your food. Because I feel like the food as fuel is a little tough too, you know? So finding the thing that works best for you is not as easy as going online and like finding a diet or going into a bookstore and pulling a book from the shelves. I really think that it's about putting the time in, and nobody wants to freaking do that. Nobody wants to do that. But I think as you're finding, especially like with keto, which I've tried before, and it did not work well for my body. I tried it because I have an autoimmune disorder, and I thought, well, I'll see, like there's a lot of good research and documentation out there, but it did not work well for me. And I think we have to like try things out, see how they work for us. And if they don't, we have to adapt and find, again, someplace in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, The Magic Pill, I remember that movie when it came out on Netflix, and I was like, I remember I wrote a huge, long thing on Facebook about how, oh my God, they were lied to us the whole time. The pyramids flipped upside down, the food pyramid, and and how dare them, and it just played into my whole, I'm already a conspiracy person as it is, and that just like, oh, that was one of the things that kind of helped set me on a course to lose weight and everything else. But then, lo and behold, life happens, and you want to live again.
Mm-hmm.
You
Totally,
know what I mean?
yeah.
And then it's all out the window.
Yeah, it's like you got to find, what works for you. I eat a lot of fresh produce. I work with a local company, and I'm going to be honest, like their meals are vegan, and like I'm not vegan, but I love having that fresh produce. I love knowing where my food came from. I love supporting a local company. And I also sometimes just will grill something and add it into what I'm eating, but it's like you have to find the thing that works best for your body. And like one of the things that I think is like the best tell for that is like, how does your stomach feel? Like, are you feeling bloated all the time? Are you feeling sick? Or do you feel nauseous? Like, do you feel often like you overate, And sometimes I talk to people about these things, and they're like, oh yeah, I feel like that all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, let's change something up. Like, let's try something a little bit different and see if you feel better. My wife actually is gluten-free, but she was like, I don't have a sensitivity to gluten. I don't. And like, I made her for like 3 months go off of gluten. And she was like, it's not helping me at all. This is stupid. This is horrible. And then so we reintroduced it, and she got so sick. And she's like, why am I so sick? And I'm like, that's how you felt all the time before, but you didn't know that you could feel a different way. Yeah. So yeah. So it's a big difference.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that food is also, how your body processes it. So, you're susceptible to different types of foods, insulin spikes that come from eating different types of foods. A lot of the inflammation comes from an insulin spike with the gluten and everything else. So, I mean, I did experience a lot of that stuff. Like, I had a lot of energy when I was fat adapted, and like I could go, like I would intermittent fast, and I could do it for like 16 to 18 hours and not even be hungry at all, because my body was using its own fat reserves as energy. But I could never get back there. for some reason, I couldn't get back there. And I think that keto is great to kickstart that.
Yeah.
I don't, it's really difficult to eat that much fat because you don't understand how, like, when you see 50, or what is it, it's a 85%, 85, 15 and 5, right? And so 85% of your daily intake is from a fat source, whether it's bacon, or you're getting it through eating ribeye, or and you got to be careful with that too, because that's a lot of protein in a ribeye steak. And so you're having to go for other sources, like using a lot of olive oil, using butter, using, like, my bulletproof coffee in the morning was loaded with like 50 grams of fat, from coconut oil, heavy whipping cream, and butter, and whatever else
Yeah.
that I chose to throw in there. So yeah, it's not as easy as it seems to put that much fat in your body, and I mean it can't be that good for you on like these people that do it for as a lifestyle, an extended period of time. I don't see how that could be good for you.
I think that, like in theory, as you continue on a keto protocol and you become fat adapted, that you can start to decrease the amount of fat that you're taking in. And I'm seeing a lot more plans come out with like 45, 45, 10, so getting, more protein, kind of equal fat, and then, still low on carbohydrates. But I was one of those people who followed a really specific, strict doctor, like evaluated protocol, and my cholesterol went up. And with heart issues running in my family, I was just like not willing to continue on that and go down that trajectory. So I think that there are some people out there who can be really beneficial for. It just wasn't for me. So I think we have to like not assume that all of these are meant for all people, or that they will work for all people. Because for some people it could be, it could be awful. It could be terrible. Like people with Crohn's disease, I've worked with a lot of people with Crohn's and colitis. One of the things that's recommended so much to people is like, eat your produce. But for somebody with Crohn's or colitis, that causes some issues, or people with other intestinal problems. It can really cause issues. That the things that are normally recommended, like nuts and seeds, don't work for somebody who has like diverticulitis. And so I think we have to look at each of them on a case-by-case basis and figure out what works best for each person. And that's part of what I help people do with holistic health coaching, is help people figure out and write the book on themselves, like what works best for your gut, and what works best for sleep, and what works best for energy, and what can you eat without feeling like you're resentful of the people around you, because you're like, I want that freaking pizza or whatever, like you want to be able to still enjoy your life. Yeah, you're so hangry, you hate everyone.
Like, damn, screw you and your pizza.
I think we've all been there, right? Like when you're depriving yourself and you see someone else and you're like, great for you, Karen.
Yeah. Also, too, I don't think that people realize that how like not having enough water and being dehydrated has an effect on your attitude and like just everything about you, because your brain is a part of that, you know what I mean, in your thought process. So if you're not adequately hydrated in whatever it is that you're doing, that can throw some stuff off too. So I mean,
I'm so glad you said that. Because I feel like people just they don't know. They're like, blah blah blah, you should drink 8 glasses of water or whatever. And like I think it's more like your body weight in ounces, per day. But it's, like whatever you think works best for you, is awesome. But I think that so many of us are like, why do I have a headache? And like, we'll take ibuprofen,
Mm-hmm.
or like, why am I not sleeping well? And we'll take, some whatever. And like, we never look to it as like, what's the source of why I'm not feeling well? Is because I'm so thirsty. And I meant to say half of your body weight in ounces of water is kind of a general recommendation for the day. But if you're like, because you work in construction, you said, right?
Yeah.
So when you're out there working construction, do you find that it's more difficult for you to get water throughout the day, or like,
it's easier.
like doing manual stuff easier?
Yeah, it's easier to drink it when it's a hot day out, and you know what I mean? That's the only thing you have right there on your job site. So it's a lot easier to, I stayed more hydrated when I was working than I did now. And I was just thinking about this today. I'm like, Jesus, I've gone through a lot of soda, like diet soda, like Coke Zero. And then I started thinking about, well, damn, when I was out partying and like, doing meth and whatever else crazy stuff I was addicted to back, when I was in my previous life, like I would never drink any water ever. And I would be up for like 3 days at a time and not hardly eating anything, not drinking any water. So I'm like, God, no wonder a lot of stuff sounded like a great idea and was horrible when I look back on it now. Because you're not thinking right.
Yeah,
one, for the drugs, but
like,
two, for the lack of hydration in your system.
Yeah. I feel like, the same thing happens when we're not eating well or when we're not sleeping well, is that it's like a cumulative effect, right?
Yeah.
Like if you don't drink enough water and you don't eat enough, you might feel kind of sick. Like you might feel kind of nauseous. And then what happens when we feel nauseated? We don't want to eat and we don't want to drink. And then it gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And we're like, what's causing this? And it could be one of those things,
Yeah.
like not sleeping enough. And right now, a lot of the clients that I work with are saying that they're not sleeping well. And I think a lot of it's tied in with anxiety.
Yeah. Anxiety.
About just the state of affairs right now.
Yeah. A lot of people, I mean, I don't, I have a lot of my own thoughts about what this is and what we should do about it and where we should go right now. And if, go listen to episode 29 of my podcast and you'll see exactly where my head is at, where I'm talking about that. But, I'm speechless. I can't even, you know what I mean? I can't even express like where we are right now, because it's like, no, we've never been here ever.
Yeah.
Like at least none of the people that have been alive. Has anybody alive now been through the Great Depression? I mean, I guess that would be the only thing that would be comparable
right?
to where we're at right now. But
yeah.
I mean, I've never. I've never like shut down the whole economy except for some other ones, some of the essential working parts. But I mean, it's like, the whole world is kind of like on pause right now. And
it does feel like that. Yeah. And I feel like the people that we would normally look to, like you were saying, as leaders, like, what should we do? Oh, wise grandmother or whatever. They're like, I don't know either.
We don't have any leaders right now.
No.
We don't. There are no leaders in this country right now, and that's the scary part. Because right now, what's happening with the bailouts and all this other stuff that's going on, and the government and what they're doing, and it's like that bill is not good for the American people. Okay.
I hear you totally.
It is not good for us. It is a bailout for it's wealthy socialism is what it is. It's a bailout for all of those companies that are tied in with all of that, for them to get a free handout while they throw some cheese in a mousetrap for us. And as soon as we put our head in there, they're going to smash it. It's horrible where we're at right now as a society, as far as the gap in equality, in inequality in wealth, and what's happening to this country. And right now is a great time to make a change.
It is a good time to make a change. We were talking about that last night, right? Like people coming out of the other side of quarantine, realizing that the things that they thought were important in their lives maybe aren't so important, and shifting gears and changing careers.
Yeah.
I hope that for, anybody who might be listening to this who's like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm not in my job right now. Like, this is the best that I'm worried about not making that income, but I was miserable. If you were crying every morning, crying every lunch break, crying after work, or feeling like crap every day, this is perhaps a wake-up call for you to think about, what do you want to do? What are you passionate about? What could you do different as we pick things up, hopefully, on the other side of this? And I know things aren't going to be the same, but if you could go any direction in your life that you wanted to, what if this is like your kitchen floor moment right here? Like I talk, my coach talks about her kitchen floor moment and like having the breakdown, and like oh crap, what am I going to do with the rest of my life after she went through a debilitating like divorce and, a lot of like betrayal and stuff. I think we've all in our lives had that moment when we're like, what now? What do I do? Where do I go from here? There's so many courses that you can take online, and you can listen to this podcast for inspiration. You can take a course online. You can look into getting college credits for your work. You can think about what are those programs called in colleges where you learn a new skill after you've left?
I mean, a trade
yeah.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm in a trade.
So learning a trade, or doing like a work exchange, or doing an internship, or maybe taking this opportunity to reach out to somebody who you're interested in what they do, and maybe they're not busy right now, so you can learn from them and do an internship, which is how I knew that this for sure is what I wanted to do with my life. I was like, training in the gym is fun and all. I really enjoy it, and I think it's what I want to do. But it was like the hands-on and being able to learn and being able to see people interact, and then getting a taste of what it was like to work with people that really kind of moved the needle for me and helped me figure out that it was the right place. So right now, or, going forward, if you're not researching, if you're not reading, if you're not doing all that stuff, I encourage you to follow your passions. I'm a size 16 personal trainer who has made it for the last 10 years in this crazy industry. If I can do this, you can do it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice, because you're absolutely right. There's nothing that's holding anybody back but themselves. You know what I mean? And debilitating thoughts and, things that, that the loops that play in your own head that keep you from prospering and taking yourself to the level that that you should be at. And right now is a great time to do that. It's a good time to research, like you said, research all these different things. What is it that you want to do? Dig deep. You got nothing but time right now, and this time's this time's going to be running out. I mean, I still think it's going to go till July, or no, till June. I think they're going to do it one more month, and then it's it. It's over. Then it's going to be a whole new norm, that we're going to have to figure out, and who knows about the fallout that's going to happen from this as well. If they're
I think you're right, totally.
If they're gonna
oh, I'm sorry, I was going to ask you a question. You said to come to this interview with questions about you, and I'd really love to. I listened to your first podcast, and I just picked up on something that you said. You said the only person that's holding you back is you. And that seems to be kind of a recurring theme for you in your life. We all are, all of our decisions, right? The road that we go down is based on the decisions that we make in our life. And I could relate so much to your story of growing up. And I love how you talked about how you've changed your life, how your life is different, and how you redefined what it is to be a parent, and how you've redefined what it is to, like, such as you just did, like run for an office and do all these different things. And I just was wondering if you could tell somebody how to get started with that. I think that would be interesting to hear. Like, how do you go about changing what you think is your fate?
That's a good question. So, I mean,
Did I stump you?
yeah, no, I mean, it's too, like, so in order to get to the point where I was, or I am, or that took me to, what it was a culmination of a life of disappointment. You know what I mean? Whether it was me disappointing somebody else or being disappointed by somebody, but mostly it was me disappointing other people, but mostly myself. You know what I mean? Because I couldn't, I wasn't, I just wasn't a good person. People were, it's funny. I was talking about this earlier. The people that were, I looked at people as, means to an end rather than taking a personal interest in them. I was interested in what I could get from you. You know what I mean? Or how you can benefit me, or how you could serve me. And whether it was in drugs, whether it was in whatever, wherever I was, that's what it was about. And so it was a culmination of not liking myself, because I mean that's when you're in a spiral like that. So addiction, it kind of feeds off of that type of I don't how do you explain that? Addiction feeds off of negative feelings, and in order to continue to use and not be affected by what you were doing, I would basically use that. I would do something that would make me feel bad about myself to allow me to not feel bad about using drugs. You know what I mean? To escape the fact that I feel like shit about myself, to give me permission to go and use more drugs, to make me feel like more shit about myself, and just to continue the pattern. And so it was a long culmination of trying to not do that. And even after I stopped doing that, I mean, Jesus, there was 2 years where it took me to get normal from, serotonin levels and everything else that methamphetamine boosts in your brain. The endorphin, not endorphins, but like, you know what I'm talking about, those receptors that make addiction possible to begin with. And so it was like 2 years to get normal from that. And then when I got normal from that, I had to deal with the fact that I started using it at the age of, junior high. So my brain literally stopped at that point, at that age. And, I was lucky too, because it didn't devastate me and turn me into, what you see some of these people end up being. I still have my teeth. I still, I'm intelligent still. I'm very articulate still. I still kept all of those things, even though I used so much. I mean, I did a lot of drugs. And so, yeah, ask your question again, because I got lost in my own answer.
I was wondering, how would you suggest that someone who's feeling all the things that you were feeling, what would you say to inspire them to step in and change their own fate?
Yeah, you have to find within yourself what the problem is, and whatever you're running from. If you're using food, if you're using drugs, if you're using sex, if you're using anything to make you feel good outside of yourself, aside from you making yourself feel good, you know what I mean? And a lot of that had to do with For me, to get me out of that, I had to start achieving goals and building my self-esteem. Okay. And in order to do that, I had to take myself away from everything that I was doing before that made me feel bad about myself, and started doing new things that made me feel good about myself. Like, any small goals. So here, I'll use this for an example. So once I got clean, I started playing softball, and that became the new area that I was in, that the social circle. So there wasn't any of the using the drugs or any of that. There may have been people that were on those drugs, but it wasn't happening around me to where I knew it was there, right? And so once I started playing and being held accountable, I'm on a team now, I have to show up. I started liking it, and I started making friends, different friends, not people that were involved in any of that. So it's just a goal. It was something that I was doing. And then from there, I was like, all right, well, you know what? I don't like the way these leagues are run, so I'm going to start my own. And so I literally started my own softball league, and it became once I did that, then I became a tournament director and started running tournaments. And then it's finding something that will take you and show you, or will help you to build your self-esteem and your confidence.
Totally.
And it was a whole bunch of small little victories that turned into, at the end point, the last thing I tried to do was, like I said, I tried to run for a position as a business agent in my local. And I mean, that in itself was, taught me a lot about how things really are. And, that was a gut check too, because here it is. I think I'm this awesome person. And you got to realize that in any election, it's a popularity contest. Doesn't matter about the merit of what you've been doing. Cause I was like, I knew, the thing I said, I was like, damn, now I know how Hillary felt. Because no, seriously, I'm not a Hillary,
No.
I'm not a Hillary supporter, but like, she was the one that had all of the, the I's crossed, the T's dotted. She had the accolades to be perfect for that position, and I did too. But I didn't have the support of or the popularity to get in there. So it just, everything happens for a reason, and it's just, life's a learning experience. A lot of the wisdom is in the struggle of anything that you're going to do. If it was easy, everybody would do it. You know what I mean? And
Yes, I love it. Like, I feel like all that you just said is gold.
It's just, you have to find your path. You have to find your own niche and what it is. And then when I started doing this podcast, that, to me, like, that was so far outside of like anything I knew, because I didn't know how to do this. I'm not a broadcaster. You know what I mean? I mean, I have a good voice, but I mean, other than that, I had no clue what to do, how to figure this out, until I started watching YouTube. And then I just kind of built that. And, that was another thing that I achieved. And it was like, all right, you know what I mean? And I think that's what a lot of people are missing, is the path to self-confidence and what was the other one? It's self-confidence and self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
Once you figure out how to do that, and it all starts with goals. You have to have a goal and be able to have it to a point that you can attain it, to realize what it feels like to get the incentive to be incentivized by your own actions.
I totally agree. Yeah. I'd also add to that, I went through a really rough, like, very dark period in 2017. And, like, to be totally honest, was feeling super suicidal. And I was just like, where am I going with my life? What's going to happen? And I know it sounds silly, but I like joined a group online, a Facebook group where I could show up like you did in your softball league, and I could be like a different person. I could like invent who I wanted to be, like, you know, and nothing that I said to them was untruthful or dishonest. I just didn't tell them like, hey, I'm going through a real dark period right now. You know how your friends would approach you if you were going through something hard? They'd be like, oh, like, I just did not want that. I wanted to be able to be a leader. I wanted to be able to step up into the world from a place of service, like being able to help others. And that was totally what that gave to me. And like, I can relate so much to what you're talking about, and just taking those little steps, setting small goals, meeting them, achieving them, and then moving on to the next one. And it's like the universe leaving you breadcrumbs of like where you're supposed to go, what you're supposed to do. And every time, you pick one up or you head in that direction, it's like you get this like pat on the back from yourself for achieving the thing that you set out to do. There's nothing that feels quite like that. And it really helped me to get out of a very dark, very, very dark period.
Yeah, like I don't even trip on any of that stuff anymore. Like it's most of my time and my energy is spent on trying to be better than I was yesterday.
Yes. Yes.
And taking account of, hey, was I an asshole yesterday? Did I unnecessarily like treat somebody badly? You know what I mean? And if I did, then I need to go make it right. And the goal is to not have to be able to look back on the day and not have to apologize to anybody. You know what I mean?
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. I totally try to lead with kindness, and I'm not awesome 100% of the time. Like, I'm a human, Sometimes I swear under my breath at the car in front of me or whatever, but I think it's a good way to look at it. Like, am I better today than I was yesterday? And did I complete today without being an asshole to anyone? That's a good day, right? Like, yeah. That's a good day.
And for some people, just a good day is going outside. You know what I mean? And not being fearful of whatever. You know what I mean? It's different for everybody. But I mean, totally. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and trying to achieve those goals. And at some point, you're gonna, if you keep on with it, you're gonna end up where you want to be.
Absolutely. And to that point, to tie this back around, I think, if you've been holding back on something because you're afraid of judgment from people, if you haven't entered a gym, if you haven't talked to a therapist because you're afraid of like what that means about you or what people will think, if you have, like, do the thing. Yeah. Do the thing that will help you. By all means, you could reach out to me. Again, my name is Stacey Sorgen, and I own ModBody Fitness. I'm sure that I love it if you could be so kind as to put my information up along with this podcast. But if you're someone who wants to be a personal trainer and you have questions about it, if you want to know the questions to ask when you go into a gym in your local area, if you just want someone to like listen, I'm 100% here for you.
Yeah, all of your information will be in the show notes. I'll have you email me exactly what you want to appear there. That way, I don't mess it up at all.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean,
it's been awesome to be here and to have a chance to talk to you today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time and your honesty and your willingness to listen to me.
I feel like we should do this again, because I feel like we got 3/4 of the way through, and then we're like buddies talking on the phone. I think we should do another podcast sometime.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I always will swing back around to get people that, if it was a good episode and the conversation was great, then I would always circle back around and do it again. For sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome, and I applaud what you're doing. You know, I mean, there is definitely a need for it. You know, obviously, it's provided you with a life and an income for the last 10 years. So there's proof in that. So I mean, who that's all that really matters. You know what I mean? Who cares what anybody else thinks? They're not paying your bills.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Thank you for your perspective. And I think that your podcast is so valuable. I love it. I listened to a couple of the episodes today and I'm obsessed. I'm going to go listen to the rest of them. It's so good. I love digging. I mean, like we were talking about yesterday, you can meet people on the street and have no idea what they've been through, like what their background is, what fears they have, whether or not they suffer anxiety, whether or not they've had cancer. Like, you know nothing about people. They're a clean slate for all you know. And hearing their stories and what people have been through and what they've come through and who they are now, it's just freaking amazing. And thanks for giving people the opportunity to talk about that, because I think other people who are in it need to hear that. They need to hear it. So thank you for all that you're doing with this amazing podcast.
Well, I appreciate that, and it isn't completely selfless. All right, so I'm gonna disclose that right now. It isn't completely selfless, but the reason why I'm so transparent and that I'm like kind of an open book, and I'll tell people about, you know, any of the issues that I've had, whether it was with anger, verbal abuse, anything that I've done out there and that I've, you know, actively tried to change, is I truly believe that it's really hard to hide from yourself when everybody knows your secrets.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And especially like if you're dating somebody, and I mean, they know, you know what I mean? They're listening to your podcast, so they know that you probably you've struggled with anger. So maybe you probably shouldn't get angry like you were, you know what I mean? Cause then I don't know. It just, for me, it helps me to stay honest by having everybody know what my demons are.
I appreciate that. I really, really, really do. And, you know, I have a lot of respect for you and what you're doing and what you've talked about and what you've opened up about and shared. And I think that in doing it, even though some of it might be self-serving in the way that you just talked about, it does make other people feel safe and opening up and sharing too. Like, you're showing the benefit of what it is to be honest about who you are. And I think it's important to be, you know, to be who we are.
Yeah.
And to show up that way in the world. And it's awesome. So good. So good. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I appreciate all the kind words. I really do. And I, you know, at the end of the day, all we can really do is hope that we're making a difference, you know, and somebody's benefiting from what we're putting out there. And you know, obviously I am. And so it's good to hear. All right. Well, like I said, this is, we've been at this for about an hour and 10 minutes. That's pretty good. Not bad.
Yep.
And this will be out, fairly, it shouldn't take me too long to get it out, but like I said, send me an email with all the stuff that you know, if you have a bio, if you have, you know, whatever it is that you want to appear in those show notes, and,
Cool.
and how to find you.
That's great.
And I'll throw that on there.
Thank you so much. It's been really nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's nice meeting you too.
Yesterday on the phone, you were like, I'm really intimidating, and people, you know, no, like, I find you really friendly and like welcoming and warm. And so maybe, you know,
well, that's just walking. That's just walking around on the street, because I don't smile a whole lot when I'm out in public.
I don't either.
You know what I mean?
Don't either.
So it's like, I'm not really approachable. I'm kind of like, all right, I got to go do this, and so I don't really. And I think everybody's like that. I mean, the days.
I'm like that. You're like in your own in your own world.
The days where you would be able to pick up on somebody in the supermarket, you know what I mean? I think
those days are gone for a while.
Yeah, I think those days are gone, but they were gone already though, because people don't.
Yeah.
They don't have time for any of that. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, I'm trying. Can you see? I'm trying to grab some apples here. You know? No, I don't want your number.
I love it. Awesome. Well,
right.
I'd love to chat again sometime soon. Feel free to keep in touch.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Stacey. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.